Have you seen this cat? Well, now you have. Big the Cat. We know him, we love him, hopefully. Big has got to be one of the most fan-favorited characters in the series, probably, maybe, I don't know, I'm just talking. But I am positive that a lot of fans love Big the Cat, myself included. Dude is so chill, like he really just be there, he just be fishing. Big is such a staple character because he's basically an in-universe meme. The guy just kind of appears and says, Froggy? And the fans go absolutely wild. Unlike Silver, Big never really played a super important role in the games, but today I kind of just want to talk about him and, you know, give some appreciation for the big guy, because who doesn't want to talk about Big D Cat every once in a while? Unfortunately though, I think at this point in the series, it's safe to say that Big won't make much of an impact anymore. One could say that he's Sonic Team's big joke. Okay, let's talk about who Big is. Okay, let's be real. If you've been a Sonic fan for long enough, you know who Big the Cat is. Like, there's no way you don't know who he is if you've been a long time fan. But Sonic gains new fans every day from multiple different outlets, so maybe some people aren't as well versed with the characters in the series, and that's completely okay. So hopefully this video can help people out who haven't been there since the damn the war of the 2010s. Big the Cat is a cat who is big and purple. He's a purple cat with a pet frog named Froggy who gets lost in like every game somehow. Most of his appearances in the series are just silly side appearances or little cameos within mainline games, aside from certain exceptions that we're gonna get into later. That's really all there is to Big as a character. He unfortunately doesn't serve much of a conventional purpose to the series, and is practically just a character for the fans to look at and go, He first appeared in Sonic Adventure 1 and has been in the series since, even appearing in Frontiers in the fishing minigame, which made me real happy when I saw it for the first time. As I said before, most of his appearances, including his Frontiers appearance, are just side appearances, and Big has not been on the big stage for a mainline game since all the way back in Sonic Heroes, and I'm so serious, I'm not joking around. The last time he was important in a Sonic game was in 2003, bro. Like, please give him a break. Okay, so remember how I mentioned Sonic Adventure 1 like right before this? Yeah, let's talk about that. As I mentioned like twice now, Big is one of the 6, technically 7, playable characters that appear in Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure DX, which is the same game, but I just want to mention them both. Story-wise, Big himself doesn't do too much in the events of the game. The main focus of Big's campaign is on Froggy. Big's story basically just starts off with him chilling out, and Froggy walks his own path and goes on an adventure, leaving Big. Big decided that he should probably go look for his pet frog, and then he does that. Now, because Big only focuses on Froggy, he doesn't do much for anyone else in the story, but Froggy, on the other hand, occasionally manages to make his way in a very unfortunate circumstances. At the end of Big's story, he just basically gets Froggy back, and that's it. He doesn't cross over much with other characters, and he mainly just does his own thing. The main talking point about Big when it comes to Sonic Adventure 1 is his playstyle. Everyone in Sonic Adventure 1 has a different playstyle, and Big is no exception to that rule. Knowing Sonic, you might think, what kind of playstyle would Big have? Large stature and lack of special abilities would make it pretty difficult for him to do speedy stages or treasure hunting. Maybe, you know, have some platform based thing. It's Sega bass fishing. Big's playstyle is just a demo for Sega bass fishing. I mean, the idea of it isn't bad because, you know, Big's a fisherman, fisher cat. In theory, the idea is pretty good. Plus, Sega bass fishing is cool and awesome, and I'm mad that I don't own it on Steam, but they already had a baseline for fishing gameplay because the game came out before Sonic Adventure did, being released in December of 1997, while Adventure 1 came out in December of 1998, an entire year after. They might as well have just used the fishing gameplay from that game and put it into Adventure. Unfortunately, in practice, yeah, not so much. The difference between the two, and what I think is the big reason behind why Big's gameplay is worse than Sega bass fishing, is because of one evil frog. Now, knowing Big's levels rely on fishing, you would assume that means to win, you have to get like a high score or something to complete the level, especially considering the fact that the levels do have scores, and the more fish you catch, the higher your score is. Well, Sega saw that idea and just threw it out the window. Instead of getting a high score to complete the level, you have to catch one very specific thing: Froggy. That might sound easy in concept because it's a pretty easy concept, but in practice it's an absolute nightmare. First off, there's only one Froggy, which makes sense because there's only one Froggy in the story, but gameplay wise that means you only have one target and one target alone. That in and of itself wouldn't be too bad, but Froggy is notoriously stubborn and refuses to bite the damn rod. That makes catching him even more difficult. But not only does Froggy refuse to take the bait and bite the rod, he's also extremely difficult to pull up compared to the other fish that you can catch in the game. Granted, Big is still very much playable in the game, and it's nowhere near impossible to beat the storyline, but those two things mixed together create an extremely grueling and tedious process that most players probably wouldn't want to do again. And to give the gameplay the benefit of the doubt, assuming you did enjoy its gameplay and you wanted more fishing, Just get Sega Bass Fishing. What are you doing buying Sonic to fish? You already have a game that exists just for you. Just go buy Sega Bass Fishing. That's a pretty small description of Big's appearance in Sonic Adventure 1, even though it took up like an entire page of the script, but it's also by far the biggest complaint that I've seen about Big from fans across the interwebs. His gameplay is seen as the lowest part of Sonic Adventure 1, and as a whole it kind of just tarnishes his name in a way that's pretty unfair because judging it based off of his gameplay is pretty stupid, though that was not the only important mainline appearance that Big has made in the franchise, because he also appears in Sonic Heroes. Okay, so small exposition dump for people who are unaware of Sonic Heroes because it's a pretty niche game in the series, all things considered. Sonic Heroes, released in December of 2003, a lot of Decembers in this video. For GameCube, PS2, Xbox, and PC, blah blah blah, I said this like 2 videos ago. The game revolves around 4 teams of 3, those teams being Team Sonic, Team Dark, Team Rose, the one we're gonna talk about, and Team Chaotix. Please bring back Team Chaotix, Sega, I beg of you. Since we're only focusing on Team Rose right now, I'm only going to talk about them because it's inevitable that I'm going to have to make a Sonic Heroes video, and I'll need to talk about the other teams at that video anyways. Team Rose consists of Amy, hence the name Rose, Cream, and you guessed it, Big the Cat, baby! The game's story is mostly disconnected because every team has their own story. Occasionally, 2 teams will cross paths and fight each other, but that's really the extent of them meeting during the main part of the story. But they all kind of converge with each other at the end of the game for one final story. In the game, Amy, Cream, and Big meet up, and due to their mutual search for people, those people being Sonic for Amy, Chocola for Cream, and of course Froggy for Big, that damn frog. Because of all of them having someone to look for and all of them seeing those 3 people in the newspaper together, the 3 of them just decide to team up and go search for their friends. Now that we gotten the story aspect of Sonic Heroes out the way, let's talk about the gameplay, and this time around, it's not nearly as bad. The way that Sonic Heroes plays is significantly different from the likes of Sonic Adventure. Heroes has 3 gameplay styles that exist for each team, those being Speed, Fly, and Power. Those names should make the style pretty obvious, but in case you aren't 100% sure, I'll explain them now. Speed is speed. You run fast and play similarly to how Sonic plays in the adventure games, just with a little bit of extra speed. Fly is light. You're a bit slower, but you gain access to flying, which can lead to different paths and can also help you just avoid enemies entirely. Power is strength. You gain the ability to break through certain objects, and it's much easier to defeat enemies. Though you can still defeat enemies with the other 2 styles, so it doesn't really matter what you choose when it comes to combat in that game. The trio formation of styles are the only playable styles in that game, excluding the end, sorta. They appear on each team, with the only difference being the character that represents that archetype. Team Rose also falls under that, with Amy being the speed rep, Cream being the fly rep, and the power rep is none other than Big. That's really all there is to Big's appearance in Sonic Heroes. Team Rose as a whole is just not super important to the story, and neither is Big himself. I can't think of a transition, so... That boy got that virus! While Big doesn't make huge appearances in most of the games, he still does appear in the games. That's what I'm going to talk about now. As I mentioned before, he makes an appearance in the fishing minigame during Sonic Frontiers, which is super cool and makes sense for the character, but you could genuinely go the entire game not even knowing that the fishing minigame exists, so it's a relatively minor appearance. Though it was pretty major for me because I spent countless hours cheesing out skill points and level ups for Sonic, but that's just me though. He also appears in some of the Mario and Sonic Olympic Games, specifically in the Olympic Winter Games, the London 2012 Olympic Games on the 3DS, which I honestly forgot existed, and the Rio 2016 Olympic Games. Another appearance he makes is in Sonic Adventure 2, which is crazy, but honestly all he does in the game is just exist in little places. He also makes a short appearance in the DS version of Sonic Colors, which is pretty random, but alright. He appears as a playable character in Sonic Shuffle on the Dreamcast, which is just a Mario Party style game with Sonic characters. He of course has more appearances throughout the series, like I said 2 sentences ago, including appearances in the comics and the anime. This is more of an appreciation post about Big and just me wishing better for him as a character. If you want to see his appearances in every Sonic game, I'll leave a link in the description to a video like that just for you little silly goose. Now the reason I brought all of this up is because look at the difference between his actual roles and his shoot-in roles. Even in his most important role, which is in Sonic Adventure, he still plays a relatively minor part in the overall story and is only remembered for having bad gameplay. In Heroes, he even has an AoE irrelevance effect where he makes his entire team irrelevant for the story as well. While I understand that you can't make everyone important in every game, it seems like Sega is making Big a bigger joke than he needs to be. He can be a silly character, but he can also be useful to a story. Granted, like I said before, I personally really enjoy his appearance in Frontiers. I think it's really fitting for him to appear in a fishing minigame because of his heavy ties to fishing. Plus, I also just had fun seeing him in the game, but just because I enjoy his appearance in Frontiers doesn't mean I think he gets adequate representation in the series. Case in point, Sonic Adventure 2, why? Why is he just there? I think that because Sega sees Big as a gag character, they don't really want to put focus on him. But just because he's a gag character doesn't mean that he should be treated like one all the time. Big is a side character, so I'm not saying that I want him to be on the front lines with Sonic going super big form or something, but I do think that Sega needs to make him appear a bit more important. Big the Cat is a very silly character. He has his own chill fisherman vibe that nobody else really has in Sonic. Though I realize that Big isn't a big series focus, I think that his only roles in the series are unfortunately very lackluster. Even in his debut games, or the games where he plays an actual role in the story, I still feel like he doesn't play a role in the story somehow, and I just think that's really silly. I hope that Sega actually gives him a somewhat important role in a future game, even if they keep him as a comic relief character, which is fine. I just think that they should make his existence mean something more. I'm just tired of them disrespecting my man Big, man. Put some respect on Big's name.